Hey, go Gator.
Oh, Nelly. Rob Brown, executive producer Brendan Martin. Monday Morning Blitz is on, folks. What a weekend. And all the talk, man. It is week 13, and everybody's on the edge of their seat like a bunch of 9-year-olds on Christmas Eve wanting that shiny new Schwinn 10-speed. Coach Ellis Johnson batting in the leadoff position, followed up by the Iron Duke, Franz Beard from GatorBaitMedia.com, and then Ken Capps, Football Writers Association of America out in Dallas, Fort Worth, talking Horns, Aggies, Sooners, the Western Flank, and in between, we're going to touch all. Say that on TV, though. Look behind me. You'll see the map. We'll touch on all 16 teams. See my sign I got at Buc-ee's yesterday? Relax. We're all crazy. It's not a competition. We love college football. So we're going to get started now with Coach Ellis Johnson here in the first segment over in South Carolina. And, Coach, everything is a good to go. There's so many good games. Where do you really start? But I'll just let you go and say your takeaways from this past weekend, week 12. And we've got two more before we get into conference championships and all. But up to this point, give it an A+.
Yeah, I think you have to start with the Georgia-Tennessee game. That one definitely had the most impact on not only those two teams' seasons, but the overall playoff picture. And I was really surprised how lopsided it was. Wouldn't be surprised either one of those teams won. They're both really good teams. Tennessee's defense was not as good as they've been through the year. And Georgia was able to run the football on them and had balance in their offense. And I don't know, the quarterback, it continues to me that he's just not quite what they build him to be. Now, will he be once he gets some maturity? I don't know. But right now, it's not what they thought he was going to be. And, of course, the other one was the Florida win over LSU. And it's not going to shock me if Florida pulls an upset on Ole Miss next week. And that's the only one really coming up that I think could really throw a wrench into the playoffs. I think that there are a lot of things that could happen. But I'm telling you, the way Florida's playing, if DJ Lagway stays healthy, it's going to be a game. I think Ole Miss it better be ready for an upset.
Yeah, and I'm not saying physically he's Tim Tebow, but he reminds you a lot of him, but with a better throwing motion, better arm. I've not seen a high school quarterback, and I have been saying this all season long, and Brendan and the Gator Bait Media people know more than me, but he just makes everybody around him want to be better. I think he exudes confidence, Coach. And like you do, when you're on this show, when you're talking about football, it's because you've got 50-plus years as a coach and a player, and you exude confidence. You're kind of like meeting Frederick W. Smith.
Well, it's absolutely – I tell you, if they'd had him healthy through this 3-game stretch, I mean, that murderers really had Georgia, Texas, LSU, Ole Miss. That's a pretty rough trip. And if they'd had him healthy, I think they would probably at least win half of them. That's a bold statement, but we'll find out. I think he just makes that much difference in their team. They haven't played terrible defense all year. They've played very solid, but their offense would put the defense in a bad situation, and they just weren't good enough to carry the team. But when they got great quarterback play out of Lagway, they've won ball games.
Yeah, they have.
And that could be what happens through the season, and it could really upset the standings right now with Ole Miss getting knocked out.
Coach, talk about how the difference is in a playmaker in a key position like DJ Lagway closing out a game. It always seems like Florida hung in a lot of games the first half, maybe part of the third quarter, then can't finish. I was on the sidelines for the game. It was, exciting game, but you got the sense of that the game was in control and that Lagway was, not going to let that slip away. The a la intangible, I'm a winner sort of mentality that he seems to carry, like a Tim Tebow per se. Talk about how important that is to close a game, especially in the SEC.
Well, that's important at any time. I mean, in your locker room, in your pregame, in your preparation during the week on the field, and certainly what you're talking about in a tight ball game as it moves down, the confidence that he puts in the rest of his teammates is huge. And other players can do it too. but not to the extent that a quarterback can. So if you got a quarterback out there and the rest of these guys are pulling that confidence off of him, and they've done a heck of a job recruiting, so they've got players. They got just as good of players as everybody else. But when that quarterback can exude confidence and it permeates into the rest of the team, it's invaluable. And then you're going to have to, if you're not going to win in the SEC, if you can't win close games.
Coach, Ron Roberts is known as the guy back at Delta State, Southeast Louisiana, coming up with the creeper defense, and it's known to be good at slowing down RPO offenses. Give us just, Cliff Note version. I don't want to get too technical, but you can put it in the vernacular about as well as anybody I've ever seen. So why the creeper, and maybe how it's adapted to what's going on today from where it started when he did it, 15, 20 years ago?
Well, I don't know all the technicalities about his approach to it, but the change started coming along with defensive coaches. Initially, when we got it, the hurry-up offenses and the tempo, we just hardly could match it. And the first thing you had to do is try to duplicate it on the practice field, which is damn near impossible with a scout team. And if your offense doesn't do it, you never see it. So that's the first part. The second part, we had to shrink our verbiage, call it the way we would call a defense, and start nicknaming defenses maybe by one little code word, an animal or a city or a team or something. Yeah. And so everything had to speed up between plays. But then when the rule came in that if they sub, you can sub, defensive coaches started using that to the advantage. And you see a lot of delay of games now because these offensive teams try to sub, and you kind of make sure you time it up. But as long as you get them out there in a reasonable time, the referee's not going to penalize you. And you can slow walk them out there, not walk technically, but and it messes up the offenses. Yep. So you see less substitution now. And if they've got a substitute, they just slow down because they're going to have a mistake if they don't. So there are a lot of elements to it, but there's no question the defenses have caught up to that part of it. And I think a lot of times the offenses now are not getting productive plays out of that. And they're starting to say, hey, look, it may be getting them off key a little bit, but we're not having successful plays. We're not executing. And I think it's taken a while, but the defenses have adapted.
Yeah, and I remember back in 2006 when Gus Malzahn brought the Wildcat hurry up, no huddle. It was a shock to people just to see it, and it's changed a lot. And as far as
you've got to name it, you got to sell it, right, Coach? Yeah. I mean, you got to sell it to the media. You got to, you got to be the air raid. You got to be the fun and gun. You got to be the spread, option. You got to make it sexy, don't you? You got to sell it to a large group of people that have to buy into it, right? So you got to make sure you know what the heck, if it's seemingly what you're talking about, right?
Well, that makes it sexy to recruits and to the media.
Yeah.
Okay.
And that's who sells it to the recruits. So the nickname of it is something you do. It's kind of a motivational thing with your own team. But all those things, coaches are the biggest thieves in the world, and all these things are stolen from other coaches and both sides of the ball. And of course, you're always calling coaches on opposing teams who just played another team, like a similar opponent or whatever. But I think that when it first arrived, and the other factor is officials did not know how to deal with it properly when it first came out. And that really put the defense at a disadvantage. And I was one of those guys that was trying to chase my tail against Coach Malzahn. And then when he hired me at Auburn, the opening press conference, one of the reporters asked me about what I said about that offense. I said, I don't remember that.
It doesn't matter. Well, Coach, that's the cool thing about it. When a coach leaves, like, say, college, and he goes to the NFL for 8 or 10 years, and he comes back, it's always a shock, especially in today's world with all the constant changes. How long does it take to get up to speed if you're installing a new defense? What typically, about 12, 15 games, or is it quicker?
Let me tell you the biggest thing that's different in college and pros. And guys that have tried to move from one level to the other, either way, sometimes they find out the hard way. You have to have so much more verbiage in the pros. And the reason you do is because in the pros, it's not about speeding up, and it's not about deep balls every 6 plays. It's about efficiency. And the other thing is everything in the pros revolves around pass protection and pass rush.
Yeah.
And the quarterbacks are the game. That's why they make the money they do, and that's why the rules keep changing to protect them, because they have to put a product on TV that people want to watch. And if you get down to a second team, certainly a third team quarterback in the pros, nobody's going to cut TV on, because it's just going to look mundane.
Yeah.
And that's the thing they find out. And the reason is it's very difficult to protect the quarterback when you got all these exotic blitzes coming. Now, the college things, it's more about speed of play, talent, how mobile is the quarterback. And eventually, if they run around too much in the pros, they get hurt and they get tired. And it stops after about 3 or 4 years. They realize they got to learn how to throw the ball, or they're not going to survive. So there's a difference, and that's where it all starts. And there is an adjustment, but it's still football. And so there are things you have to change and learn if you move from one level to the other. But it certainly, I think it starts with pass rush and pass protection. That's the biggest differences.
Coach, when you look at a running back in the SEC, for example, they'll run wide a lot. And people say when you get to the NFL, if you can't run between the tackles, you're going to have a pretty short career. And that just along the lines of what you just said. I want to ask you about Arkansas and Texas over the weekend. Arkansas, they're struggling. Sam Pittman, everybody loves that guy. And I know a lot of Arkansas fans. And you've got Bobby Petrino's there, Travis Williams, who I'm a huge fan of out of Columbia Spring High School, Marcus Woodson. I remember him from Memphis and then at Auburn. If Arkansas, I hope Sam Pittman makes it, because I don't know. I can't help but I like people, but it's just a tough business. If they made a change, who is an ideal? You don't have to name a name, but what does the coach at Arkansas have to do that a coach, say, at Georgia or Florida or LSU doesn't have to necessarily do?
Well, Rod, the biggest challenge at Arkansas is and always is recruiting, because you don't have a natural recruiting base that compares to the Texases and the Georgias and the Floridas and certainly the Californias. And it's very hard. Even back with the old Southwest Conference days, they would have to go down to Texas and get players. And when they played all those Texas teams, they didn't have a hard time getting kids to come up there to play because they knew they'd go down and play at least 5 times near their parents and near their homes. Then they got out and went to the SEC, and the Texas schools didn't come along at that point.
Yep.
So they're trying to recruit demographically somewhere that they don't ever play football games. And that's hard to sell kids and families. Then finally, the Texas schools come into the SEC, and I think that's going to help Arkansas in their recruiting.
I do too.
They used to say if they recruited one of the better players out of Arkansas, he would play by his junior year. If they got one of the better players out of Texas, he'd play his freshman year. Yeah. And that's just the difference in the high school football and the recruiting demographics. Past that, I think Pittman's a really good football coach and a good recruiter. And it's just a tough job compared to some of these other jobs that are in that conference.
I was in Little Rock last Wednesday for a lunch meeting with a bunch of Arkansas alums. They're all Sigma News, Jim McClellan's group, and Kenny Gibbs. And they announced that the Hunt family, J.B. Hunt, the son and daughter, just made a $100 million gift to Arkansas for scholarships. And I think there's going to be a matching gift come with it. We were up there for the Tennessee game. They don't lack money.
No.
The last two campaigns, one of the Walton members gave them $400, and the last campaign gave them $500 million. And they've got the Hunts, and Stevens is the largest off-Wall Street investment bank in the world. They've got them, but I guess the question I'll ask, I agree with you. So many Arkansas people used to go to Texas. This was explained to me for their jobs. Houston, Dallas, Fort Worth, Austin, San Antonio. Now those kids are migrating back to Arkansas. And I agree. The more they play down there, I think it helps them. That's great. All right. Another question is, your son is a GA with Jody Wright at Murray State. How frustrating is it for programs, whether it's Power 4 or Group of 5, to deal with tampering? We got to stop that, because if you're building a team as a coach, without trust, if you can't I was always taught if you're supposed to be there at 5 in the morning, damn it, be there at 4:30. That's just the way I see it.
Well, I started working on this technical thing this morning about 3:30. So
You kicked ass.
I got it right for the
You
first
did.
time. But you make a good point. But Rob, it's never going to stop. The only thing that can stop this moving in and out of kids and everything, and I don't want to be too strict on the players because coaches have mobility, but they also have contracts and penalties and other things. I think they've got to change the rule about transfer. And with this magic word portal, everybody's forgot they're really just transfers. And I don't think you should make it where a kid can't transfer. He should be able to make some personal decisions. But I think you have to make it when a young man makes a commitment to go somewhere and play. Maybe it's 2 years. You don't play anywhere else for 2 years. You stay there and play.
Well, because that was always the defining factor. It was that you had to sit and coach had to release you, and that was at least something. I mean, it was a stopgap, I think, for something. We have to do something because it's just and we also have to do something about these players coming in and signing deals and then not having any obligation. So I don't know if that's like, any kind of like whatever that, and I know they're leaving that up to the individual, but these things have to be addressed. But I think you're right. It is gas on the fire when you have a transfer portal that is anybody can jump in at any time. And then you have NIL. Rob and I have been talking about it all year, Coach.
And I am not opposed to NIL. I like NIL. I don't like the portal. I don't like that ability to just quit and go somewhere else. I just don't like it. So the other thing is, transfer has been a part of major college sports for a long time, but you used to have to sit out a year if you transfer,
right?
Unless you drop down a level. That's not a bad rule because all these things will be thrown out in court because the courts right now, they're all into the cultural, cultural part of it. They don't understand the athletic part of it, don't care. But they used to have to sit out. Well, you weren't going to get a scholarship to sit out unless you were really, really good. And so it slowed a lot of that down. But they've got to do something that's acceptable to both legal issues and NCAA rules. Because, and I'll tell you, it's hurting kids too. They don't realize it, but 10 years from now, they will have learned some habits that are going to get their butts fired out in the real world.
Well, Chad Bumpus, Mississippi State's wide receiver coach, spoke at the Touchdown Club in Memphis last week, and one of his recruits was in the audience, a running back from Bartlett High School right here in Shelby County, Memphis. And I asked the question, I said, Coach, when guys are talking about hitting the portal and, I'm not happy, I'm ready to leave, do y'all sit them down and say, let me tell you something. It's easy to walk away because this is too tough or something's wrong, but you're going to have problems wherever you go. And also, you ain't going to be able to come back here to Mississippi State or you pick the school and tap into that alumni network, that group of ring knockers. You know how powerful the Citadel. My grandfather and his brother all went to VMI, and their father went to VMI. And then before that, our family, West Point. I broke the tradition. I went to Auburn. But boy, you talk about a tight-knit group of people. You show that Citadel ring, and you know what I'm talking about, Coach. They know, okay, if you've got that ring, I can trust you. And these kids, they're right. They're going to learn when they, like what Coach Chad Bumpus of Mississippi State said, they're not going to have a home. Where are they going to go for homecoming? You remember down at Auburn a few weeks ago, they brought the 2004 team back 20 years later. Those guys are so close and tight for what they went through. And it ain't because they all left, is it?
No. And those are the lessons. And I mean, it sounds like Pollyanna, if you will, a little bit, but those are the lessons, life lessons that are not being learned in a lot of these situations. Now, that's always been something you talk to kids about, even before the portal and before the NIL. You used it in recruiting. You used it in encouraging kids to fight through and stay. And you're going to be number 2 next year. It's going to be your job for 2 years, et cetera. Well, most of them will listen and they care. But if you put money and a free ride out the door to go do something in front of a 19-year-old, he's not going to make a good decision, Rob. And the parents, a lot of times these homes, they want the money. They don't care where they play. They have no allegiance to a school. They really don't have any allegiance to a location. And they want the money and they want to play. immediately because that's how they're going to get the money. And it's just a bad system in that respect. Now, I want them to get money. I think they could have solved that a long time ago. We wouldn't be where we are now.
Yeah.
But I don't like all this transferring. And we beat this to death, but it's putting some things into young people that later on are going to be a really bad quality for them. And it's going to hurt them in life.
Yeah. I mean, if there's one thing I've been told by every coach or teacher or my parents, if you quit out here because this is too tough, you're going to quit every damn thing in your life that's too tough. So hang in there and fight. Coach, I got to ask you about South Carolina. We were down in Auburn at the game and tailgating afterwards with a bunch of people that were from Columbia. They've got kids at Auburn, but they're all Gamecocks. Man, I can't help it because my brother-in-law played at Virginia Tech in football, and 2 nieces and a nephew went there, and they're all living in Roanoke. I love Frank Beamer, and I'm a big fan of Shane Beamer, the Fighting Beamers. Talk about what they're doing, because a couple of breaks go their way. They may be 9-1, 8-2, but they are the best 7-3 team in America, in my opinion.
Yeah, right now they are really playing well, and Missouri cooled them down a little bit when they got some players back, but they are really playing well right now. It's a shame that they got started. They were so inconsistent first half of the year, almost got beat by an Old Dominion team, and then lost 2 games, close games to really good teams, so forth in the conference. But that's kind of an indication of when you do things by the portal, you're going to have that issue, that playing at your best ball early on. And Ole Miss may have had a little bit of that. Now they're clicking. Yeah. But Shane's done a great job. And I think I've already told you, I played for Coach Beamer in college. He was one of our assistant coaches.
Damn.
And I've known that family forever. Shane and I coached the secondary together for Coach Kroom one year. I'd never coached safeties, and he'd never coached corners. And we ended up having pretty good defense.
Yeah.
But, they're playing really well right now. It's a shame they're out of the picture. I hear some of these gurus talk about 15 teams are still in it, and they're really not. There are several teams that are on the edge that they don't have a path unless the whole world fell apart. But he really done a good job. And my only concern is he's going to lose a ton of players this year, and I'm afraid he might lose some with what we just got through talking about. Some of them looking for better deals or something and tampering.
Yeah,
he's lost players like that every year, and I don't want that to happen. But they've got an older defensive crowd and a bunch of portal guys that probably would take the first bait, or he's going to jump out early and go to the NFL.
Another one, Coach, a few more minutes before we let you go, and thank you so much for being on here with us, and awesome, technically flawless because of cooperation and working, you and Brendan working on that together. It's been amazing.
Well, we're like a dream team.
You are. It's a dream team. Yeah. I got to
ask you. I've been more difficult than any video truck you ever.
No, Rob is way more difficult than you. Rob's got that all wrapped up.
Brendan's 6'4", man. We were out in Dallas at media
tight
days.
End coach.
We had people from around the country coming into our room, and he was showing them how to do it. I mean, I've never seen anything like it. It's amazing. I got to ask you.
Not just a pretty face, Coach.
About 6'4" and a genius. I got to ask you about LSU. They have so much talent down there, and Garrett Nussmeier is the son of a coach. He's a hell of a football player. He loves being the quarterback at LSU. They're on a 3-game losing streak, and it seems like they're making the same mistakes every week. How hard is it to change your philosophy and the way you do things mid-season?
Yeah, and that part of that schedule, as it always is, you catch a section in that schedule, you got a couple of people banged up or something, and then you hit a stretch there, and somebody's got your number, and everybody just keeps working on it. But I can't pick out any specific thing that's their problem, except their defense was very average. I know last year he was frustrated, thought it wasn't good, made changes. This year they started off kind of slow on defense, and when they started really, they won some games, but they lost that first game, and then they started winning. And they sort of got to where it looked like they might end up being able to close this thing out, and then all of a sudden the defense started having problems. Yeah. And they were having problems with mobile quarterbacks. Kid from South Carolina, and the kid from Alabama. And they're very similar, but one's older and one's younger. And the kid from Sellers from South Carolina is going to be just like him when he gets a lot of experience, because he's about 6'3", 240 and can flat run and throw the ball through a wall. So, but those systems gave them trouble, and they couldn't stop them. So that was the only thing I can point to from a technical aspect that's gotten them. But it's frustrating. They say they still got a backdoor path to it, but I don't see how they're going to get in the playoffs.
Yeah, it's this SEC top to bottom. What kind of grade do you give the league this year? It's for TV. It's just incredible.
I think it's still an A+ league.
Yeah.
Now, what I do think is this portal we've been talking about. Teams are not stacked in the SEC like 4 or 5 of them can be sometimes, and you can't lose. You can't lose 3 critical players, one for this week, one from 2 weeks, and one from this. If you start having those guys in and out, they can't seem to keep that top level of play.
Yeah.
The biggest difference in the SEC and the Big Ten is the bottom half of the conference. When you got people like South Carolina and Vanderbilt and Florida that are not anywhere in the playoff pictures, and they're upsetting teams like Alabama and upsetting teams like Texas A&M when they were hot, and going and beating Florida, beating LSU this past week, and convincingly. That's a hard league to play in. And the Big Ten, they got 4 teams over there that you don't want to play, but the rest of their league is not that hard. And so their scheduling is just not the same road that you travel every week physically, nor the football side of it as far as, winning games. So it's still a great league. I just think it's a little more parity, and the parity is coming because of all the transferring. Coaches can't stockpile like they used to and just, have 6 great recruiting classes in a row. Big deal. If they're not playing yet, somebody's going to come take them.
Yeah, and that's the thing, that the 2s and the 3s are not there stacked up, but they're lining up against you, and you need an analyst or 2 just to keep up with all those guys. Coach Ellis Johnson, awesome. Let's do it again next Monday. I'll tell you, Brendan, take notes. People take notes when he's on here, and really appreciate. And I agree with you, top to bottom. That's what differentiates the SEC from all other leagues, is that the Vanderbilt and they've got LSU in Baton Rouge Saturday, Tennessee the next week in Nashville. So what I tell you, the TV people have got to be doing backflips. Yeah.
Rob, Kentucky's having as bad a year as they've had in 6 years. They beat the hottest team in the SEC, Ole Miss. I mean, it's just crazy. You got Vanderbilt lost to Georgia State, but they beat Alabama 3 weeks later. It's just a hard league to play in.
Yeah. I mean, again, how many times have we seen it this competitive? And I think divisionless college football is a hit. I think it's very popular. And now, as far as figuring out that tiebreaker formula, that's going to be up for the guys at MIT and the chess club. They can do that, because I think it's above my pay grade. I don't know how to do it.
Thanks, Coach.
Enjoyed it, guys.
Appreciate it.
All right,
you.
Coach, thank you.
Bye.
See you next Monday.
Bye.
Coach Ellis Johnson. Love the insight. And from the mean streets of Gainesville, Florida, Alachua County, comes the Iron Duke Franz Beard, GatorbaitMedia.com. Franz, Ken Capps will be on here in about 15 minutes from out in Texas, covering the western flank. Gators got him a hell of a win Saturday. I'm down in Auburn watching it on Lake Martin that night, listening to Sean Kelly and Shane Matthews on the Gator Network. What was your takeaway from it? I know Brendan and I hit on it earlier, but how good is DJ Lagway, first of all, when he's healthy?
He wasn't healthy, and yet he was good enough to beat LSU, first and foremost. He was maybe 85 or 90%. The good news was what was hurt was his leg. The bad news for LSU was his arm wasn't hurt. He made a couple of throws in that ball game. The back shoulder throw for that first touchdown to Elijah Badger was, I would say, there may be 2 college quarterbacks who can make that throw, and he's one of them.
Yeah.
The throw to Elijah Badger for 36 yards, that set up the go-ahead touchdown, there may be 2 quarterbacks on the entire planet who could make that throw, and he's one of them. The kid, people have been talking. Rex Grossman comes to mind as a guy that had that kind of an arm, but I think DJ's is better. John Reeves, I think you got to go back to John Reeves to find a quarterback who could make throws like that. And John Reeves' problem was never his arm; it was always between here, and that he never understood that if the football is 11 inches in diameter, or I don't know how wide it is, but let's just say 11, and the opening you have is only 8 inches, you cannot throw an 11-inch football into an 8-inch opening. And John never figured that out. And by the way, John Reeves was Lane Kiffin's father-in-law.
Oh, yeah.
John died, and a lot of people don't realize that. His daughter, Layla, is a University of Florida graduate. And so the entire Kiffin clan will be here in force Saturday. But this win, I think, gives Florida some momentum. And if I'm Ole Miss right now, I'm thinking I better bring not my A game, I better bring my AAA game to the Swamp Saturday. My ears didn't stop ringing until about 6 o'clock last night. About 22 hours after.
Brendan was sending me videos Saturday night. I mean, it looked like an old-fashioned Billy Graham tent revival. That Gator crowd was into it, man.
Old school loud.
This was the way it was during the Spurrier years. Mm-hmm. This is the way it was during the Urban years. Mm-hmm. We haven't seen the Swamp rocking like this in a long time.
And I'm looking at a comment by Chuck McKenzie here. Sad when the Gators beat down an LSU team that's not a top 25 team, like we beat the number 1 team. Come on, they should have won by okay. All right, Chuck, you know the Gators, but still, it's momentum. It's about momentum and recruits seeing what can happen if they come fill in the pieces. LSU's on a 3-game losing streak, but LSU was favored to win that game.
LSU is not having a good year, but they have top 10 talent. Oh, yeah. Believe me, they have top 10 talent. What they don't have is a coach with a functioning brain. This is the year that Brian Kelly is really being exposed. You look at everybody has bought into this myth about Brian Kelly, but you look, coming into this season, he was 20-7, and that's with the greatest college football quarterback on the planet for 2 years. And they still people say, well, they won 20 games. Yes, but they lost 7. And they probably, if not for Jaden Daniels being just absolutely magical with the ball in his hands, they probably would have lost another 10.
Yeah.
They have not been well coached. They've had great talent, and they've had an absolute stud at quarterback. And the guy they've got at quarterback right now has got arm talent like you cannot believe. I mean, this guy throws ropes. And the problem isn't the quarterback. The problem is the coaching, and they are a poorly coached football team.
They don't look at them. The first game of the season against Southern Cal out in Las Vegas, when they had players making stupid gestures after a touchdown and all, that's an LOD, and that's a problem. Lack of discipline. Brian Kelly doesn't have control of this team. They're on a 3-game losing streak, and he's proven to be a 9-3 type of coach. I mean, he's got a lot of wins. He's got more wins than Nick Saban, I think. And he'll keep on coaching. but he still doesn't have a single national championship. And friends, you look at the amount of money, $16.5 million on this defensive staff. They brought in the coordinator from Missouri, Kevin Peoples. They brought Bo Davis back, and the defense can't stop a running quarterback from taking it and running it right up the middle.
No.
That's inexcusable. How's that going to get better?
Well, here's the thing that's interesting. Florida only squeezed off 43 plays the entire ball game. And
Had the ball 18 minutes, didn't they?
Three of those were kneel downs, okay? God. And
wow.
Florida, here's the thing. Florida averaged 7.9 yards per play. That's really good. That's per play. That's not per pass attempt. That's per play. LSU had 92 plays. They averaged 4.2 yards per play. Now, what does that tell us? That tells us that Florida's defense was designed to let them nickel and dime. And Urban Meyer made it perfectly clear when he first came here to Florida. And he said, this is why we're always going to have a great punter, because we're going to win that field position battle, and we're going to make them go 90 yards. He said, the farther you have to go, the more likely you are to make a mistake. And guess what? That happened with LSU the entire ball game. And it got to the point that at the end, those tackles on the edge and that center up the middle were worn out because they had no idea where the blitz was coming from, and it was relentless. Yeah. And this is the way. This was a brilliantly schemed defense for this ball game.
Yeah.
And Rob, here's the thing that Florida did for the entire ball game on both sides of the ball, which is impressive with what Billy Napier did for this week. He went simple. He went Coach O on LSU. That is, make it, use the KISS formula. Make it simple. Keep it simple. Correct. Stupid. The offense. We had talked about this last week, that Florida probably would hand the ball off, throw sparingly, but as we saw from the opening snap, when DJ's in the ball game, your safeties play 4 or 5 yards back farther. That creates running lanes. That takes people out of the box, which means if you got hat on hat, you're going to have creases in there. And we saw that at the end, that hat on hat, Jaden Ball goes boop, boop, and he's gone. And have you ever seen a 238-pound back running away from LSU sprinters like he did? My goodness. But they simplified the defense too and said, okay, see the quarterback, kill the quarterback. That was pretty much the defense.
Yeah.
And it was brilliantly schemed.
Yeah. Let me say something about our sponsors real quick, friends. And this is great stuff here, and we're going to keep it going. LandersFordMemphis.com, the #1 Ford dealership in the Mid-South, open Monday through Saturday. Service department opens at 7 a.m., sales department at 8 a.m., and they're open till 7 p.m. Open every day of the week except Sundays. All right, Brad Bellamy, the general manager, was on the show with us Friday talking some college football. Ask for Brad Bellamy when you call out there. $500 off on your next vehicle purchase as a Sidelines listener. Hit that QR code. Go out there. Work with these people. They're great to work with. They'll help you. They'll help you find what you're looking for. They're all over the Mid-South. We've got an audience. Obviously, we're headquartered here in Memphis, but we go everywhere, okay, because of the web. So if you see a vehicle on there and you want to talk to them, trade in, whatever, they will deliver anywhere, literally to your driveway. Proud to be associated with them and have LandersFordMemphis.com as a sponsor. Their motto is simple. If you didn't buy your last vehicle from Landers Ford, you probably paid too much. And Don Kitchens, the president, is an Ole Miss football player. He was on the field when they beat number 1 ranked Notre Dame in Jackson Memorial Stadium in 1977. L.Q. Smith's legendary kickoff return. They'll talk some football with you, too, when you're in there. They love it. They watch the show. Also, Winter Timber Outdoors, Athens, Alabama, open every day of the week. Check out this store. They're breaking ground on the next store in Auburn, Alabama, and their goal is to grow in the footprint that is the Southeastern Conference. Look, if you duck hunt, deer hunt, quail hunt, turkey hunt, pheasant hunt, all the shooting sports, they've got over 2,000 shotguns, rifles, and handguns in the store, all the clothing, deer stands. They've got the food. They've got decoys, Dixie decoys. They're a big Sitka dealer. Great hunting store. I've never seen one this nice, and it's a big store. But one thing you'll notice when you walk in there, they've got a staff full of people that are professionally trained. They're also outdoorsmen and outdoors women themselves. Kenny Winter, Dylan Monroe. What an operation they have. They are growing, and they're going to be in your neighborhood soon. Check out that QR code. They've got a BOGO special right now on the Rete Masimara GPS BOGO. Buy one, get one free Black Friday special. Click the QR code. Duck season starts in 120 hours, if anybody's keeping track in the state of Arkansas. Deer season, this is your headquarters to go to. Love these people, love these sponsors, and all of them can be found on our website at www.sidelines.live. Franz, you've done a great job talking about DJ Lagway and LSU. I asked Coach Johnson in the first segment how hard it is to change your schemes mid-season. And when things are going bad, they seem to really go bad. Brian Kelly just looks so pissed off on the sidelines, and you saw him jawing back and forth with one of his players.
Oh, it was more than that. Many players, they just caught one on tape. That's the difference.
That's not a good sign.
He was seen screaming and yelling and getting screamed and yelled back by his own staff. I mean, this was players and staff. They have issues. They have real issues.
Exactly.
And,
something's not right.
Something isn't right, because if you look at the talent on that ball club, my goodness, that is a maybe even a top 5 team when it comes to just sheer talent. Okay. And something's wrong when you've lost 4 ball games and you got coaches and players screaming at each other, and not making a big deal of it. I mean, it's like, oh, this is normal for us. Well, it was normal in the days of Al McGuire. Al McGuire could get away with it because Al had fist fights with his players. And I mean, I was there for one of them. It was amazing. A guy played the next
Who won?
night. Oh, Al. Al never lost a fight. Al was grew up on the streets of New York, and where in an era where you had to fight or die.
Yep. Sink or swim.
You got it. LSU players screamed at coaches. They screamed at Kelly. They dropped F-bombs on each other the whole ball game. There is a real disconnect there.
Whoa.
That
you got to be kidding me.
Like I haven't seen in a long time. And again, they've got top 10 talent. Those 2 tackles that Florida wore out are going to be first rounders, both of them.
You say that, but the pros are going to look at the tape from that game and maybe have second thoughts. I mean, to me, if I'm an NFL scout, I'm just going to look at the 3 or 4 games against the best competition. Either you put out or you're out on my list. I mean, that's what matters. I think that game could have hurt. We've heard all year long about how good LSU's offensive line is. Do you really believe it's that good?
Well, here's the thing. I believe they've got that good a talent. Okay. What I don't believe is that first off, I don't think they are well coached up here.
Yeah, I don't either.
And more so than the physical abilities. I think that Brian Kelly's got to get himself a brand new staff, and if he doesn't do it soon, they're gonna tell somebody to go punch for some oil out down in Southwest Louisiana, down in the swamps and come up with the $70 million it's going to take to buy him out. They're going to do a Jimbo Fisher on us.
Jimbo money, that's right.
Yeah, Jimbo money. Let's bring in Ken Capson. Internet's good in the Hook'em Hut. Look at Bevo in the background. By the way, watched a great new show, another Taylor Sheridan production. We got off the road last night about 8 from coming back from Auburn. Landman with Billy Bob Thornton. Golly, that's a hell of a show, man. But Ken,
they filmed a lot of it right here in the Metroplex, over in Fort Worth, and so it's a great show. And Taylor Sheridan lives right around here, so there are Taylor Sheridan spottings from time to time, kind of like a Matthew McConaughey spotting. It's like it's like a big deal.
Yeah, well, it is, and it's going to be a show worth watching because people like folks like Rip and Billy Bob Thornton. Ken, let's get your thoughts, man. Franz Beer's been on here with us talking about the Gators and LSU and all the stuff going on. Let's head out to the western flank, covering Texas A&M, Oklahoma, and the SEC. But again, I've got Franz on. I've got you on, great writers. Let her rip, man, about Texas, Arkansas, and Texas and A&M are the two teams at the top of the conference. So it's got to be a lot of excitement out there in your state of 30 million and counting.
Amen, brother. Well, who would have thunk it that the Saturday before the Texas A&M game, that the game, if both teams win this weekend, will be for that spot in the SEC championship game. Yeah. And I don't think anybody at the beginning of this season predicted that. And I got to give Mike Elko a lot of credit. Yeah. He's had some quarterback issues himself, just like we've seen all over the SEC this year. But man, he's making it work. He's had some huge injuries. The Aggies may have lost another one of their big receivers for the year. We'll see about that this week. But when we woke up yesterday and we're looking at the standings, and Texas still controls its own destiny. If Texas wins out, they are in the SEC championship game. Yeah. No question. But if A&M wins out, depending on the tiebreakers and everything, that game, November 30th, Kyle Field in College Station, Texas, is going to be for all the marbles to go to the SEC championship game. So I just think it's really great that this is the way this first SEC season is going to turn out for both Texas and Texas A&M, because A&M hasn't won anything in the SEC in football, and it's really great to see their turnaround. And but enough on the Aggies. Let's talk about the horns and the hogs. By the way, I got to tell our friend.
Sure, go ahead. Yeah.
If the Aggies lose to Texas, they can forget the playoff. That's the thing. That's the thing that's being over. Everybody's talking about, well, this is for the SEC championship game. More than that, if the Aggies lose it, they're not only out of the SEC championship game, they're out of the playoff picture, because that'll be 3 losses, and they are out. So Texas can lose that game and still make the playoff.
Correct.
The Aggies cannot lose that game, period.
Yeah.
No, you're 100% right. And that's going to be, the Aggies are going to play like Arkansas did on Saturday. This is their bowl game. Okay. Yeah. Arkansas came in with a bowl game mentality. I was so sorry I missed the Friday show because I was sick as a dog and couldn't get out of bed. I'm not being hindsight as 2020 here, but I knew this was going to be a close game. I did not expect Texas to go in there like Ole Miss and blow them out, because Arkansas doesn't hate Ole Miss like they hate Texas. And, they came in, the Hogs came in with all guns blazing and really, 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 shut down Texas for a lot of that first half. And but I'll say this, and these are kind of my top 3 points here. You know, it's the old saw. You know, I try to stay away from cliches. I know we all do on this show, but you know, defense wins championships, and the Texas D, which is ranked number 1 in the country, really stepped up on Saturday. You know, that's an all Metroplex backfield that the Hogs have. Taylon Green is from Louisville, and Jaquindon Jackson is from DeSoto. And Texas only allowed 1 touchdown out of those 2 the entire game. It was Jackson on a run, but they really shut down Green, which I think was the bigger concern because of his great legs and ability to run. You know, Alfred Collins right now, this is just a couple of stats I think you'll find of interest. Alfred Collins right now, the defensive tackle for Texas, is grading out as the top defensive tackle in the SEC, ahead of Nolan at Ole Miss and Keenan at Alabama. So that's some mighty fine company there. And then, of course, if y'all watched the game, you saw number 7, Jahdae Barron, who I think is the best secondary player in the SEC right now, just eat up the Arkansas offense. Pass breakups, interception, caused a fumble. He was just all over the place, and he's very well deserving to be on every All-American candidates list, as well as probably the Jim Thorpe Award. But in my opinion, that was the key to the game. But Texas came in there and played great D and did not let Arkansas take advantage of the Texas slow start. So now let me talk number 2 real quickly about Texas's slow start. I don't know what hurt me more, watching Sam Pittman walk around on that poor hip of his that he needs to get replaced after this season. I hope he's got a good health plan at Arkansas. Or watching Quinn Ewers constantly overthrow these wide open wide receivers that were downfield.
Yeah.
I mean, it was painful, you know, and I'm sure Texas fans felt the same way. I mean, again, Jackson Dart ate up the secondary, and Texas could not complete a ball downfield. However, before I throw Quinn Ewers totally under the bus, let me say this. He threw 2 touchdown passes. One was both to Matthew Golden, the transfer from Houston. One was from the 1 yard line. And I'm sure you guys saw the game, how Golden caught it with one hand and was, right there at the pylon. And Jesse Palmer on ABC said something that I thought was the best. He goes, there is no defense for the perfect pass. So when Ewers had to throw the perfect pass, he did. He came out with 2 touchdowns. He threw 0 interceptions. But guys, here was the play of the game, in my opinion. Was on again. I know you guys saw this, but I'm just telling you what I thought were the key points. 4th and 2, Texas is trying to kill the clock in the 4th quarter. They're in Arkansas territory, and you know what happened, right? Everybody's crashing the line, thinking it's going to be just a straight up the middle play. And what happens? Ewers takes off to the left. Puts his head down, punches some Arkansas secondary dude, and gets across for the first down, which basically ran the clock out for the game. And Ewers got up like he had just, shot a 12-point buck or something. I mean, he was just so happy because he's not the greatest runner in the world, but my God, did he really come through in that game. And just one other thing real quick, and I thought this was a huge win for Texas. And I was very surprised that there were not more penalties in this game, because we always talk about this it seems like every week. But do you realize Texas only had 2 penalties for 15 yards? That is amazing for this team that has been jumping off sides all year, holding all year, has had drives killed, has had touchdowns come back. And so I think Texas is very happy to get out of there with a 10-point win. They didn't cover the spread. Sorry, bettors out there, but they're one step closer to the SEC championship and to the playoffs.
Yeah, and it was a hell of a game. Friends, we got a few minutes left. Watching all the football like he's talking about with Texas, and I know, and Ken, you know it, and friends, I'm sure you do too. Arkansas fans, it's just their blood just comes to a boiling point
Oh,
with
yeah.
Texas. And Texas leads that series like 57-23. But Franz, your takeaways from Ken, I love it how the great writers, and Ken always sends me these notes, and Franz does too. Franz writes these columns every day, but your takeaway from what Ken just said on Texas, Arkansas, and A&M, and we hadn't even talked about Oklahoma. They're 1-5 in their first year in the league. They've got to be madder than hell.
Well, here's how you can tell really good ball clubs. They win ball games when they don't play well.
Mm-hmm.
Great point.
Texas played well enough. Not well, but well enough. Okay?
Yes.
Great ball clubs play well enough. It's kind of like Saturday with Georgia and Tennessee. Georgia did not play a great football game, but they played well enough to win.
Yes.
Yeah.
100%.
And they put Tennessee in a situation where, believe me, the Vols are praying and hoping they don't get to the SEC championship game. If they do, they don't. If they do and they lose everything. They can win their last two ball games, one of which is against a convent, and I think then they got Vanderbilt. So they're going to finish 10-2, but they're a team that's praying we don't get there. The Aggies are in a situation if they lose to Texas, they are out. If they lose in the SEC championship game, they're out. They're a team that really and truly wishes the season would end right now, because if they did, they'd get in. But as it is, they won't. The only team out there that really and truly knows it's going to be in is Texas. Period. One loss, they're in. They can lose another ball game, they're in. They beat the Aggies. They were, heck. But everybody's got this shot at getting 3 losses in the SEC.
Yep.
Even Texas could have 3 losses because they could lose to the Aggies and then lose in the SEC championship game possibly. The scenarios are endless there, and they all call for total chaos, which is why I guarantee you ABC, ESPN, Disney, the Twinkie channel and all these other
Fox,
things that's controlled, that gets SEC on, they are ecstatic. They're blowing away the Big Ten's package. Nobody is watching the Big Ten, period.
Gary Danielson and Brad Nessler are in the witness protection program for TV.
It is dreadful.
Wow. It is.
But you know what? They're better. They're better than the people NBC puts on, and for the night ball game. I mean, my gosh, that you're better. What you're better off to is to, dig up an old Blue Cheer album with what was, psychedelic music from the 60s, and turn it on full blast and just watch it on the TV, then listen to those announcers.
Hey, you can sync it up with Alice in the Wonderland and do the whole thing with Pink Floyd.
Comfortably numb to this bad football on TV. But I got to throw something at you.
That's the name of Coach a good Ellis, band.
Yeah,
Comfortably Numb. I like that. Somebody needs to.
Oh, that's one of their best songs they ever did.
Pink Floyd might have that one cornered.
Yeah. Hey, I got to throw something out there. Coach Johnson was talking with Brendan and me, and we were talking about Nico Iamaleava, Tennessee's alleged $8 million NIL quarterback out of California, 5-star. Here it is. He still struggles. No explosive plays over the top against Georgia Saturday night. And he said, starting to remind me of DJ Uiagalelei. Just the struggles that he's got. Here's this big guy, has all the tools, but he's struggling to figure it out. Ken, listen, man, you'll be back on later in the week. This is great stuff. We're gonna wrap it up now.
Find out what's going on with that receiver, because he was in Gainesville this weekend.
I definitely will.
Yeah,
I'll check
Ken.
that out.
Yeah.
By the
check
way,
that out.
I mean, it's just
Tramel Jones, who was FSU's quarterback of the future, he flipped to Florida Saturday night at the ball game.
Lord.
And now that Florida's made that commitment, you watch Florida's recruiting class, which is somewhere south of Louisville, Texas, or better yet, they're out around Uvalde.
Yep.
yeah.
Florida's recruiting class is going to start going like this.
Well, and that's the thing. Florida State. There was a wide receiver who committed to Florida State. He's from Lovejoy High School right here in the Metroplex. 5-star that just flipped from Florida State to Texas last month. And so that's a whole nother story. And of course, I will talk about Oklahoma later this week, but they've got LSU and Alabama left. Unless some miracle pulls off sometime between now and then, Oklahoma will not make a bowl for the first time in 25 years.
They'll beat LSU. Count on it.
Yeah, I think so. LSU is just that's with all the talent in the world, but that's happened with LSU a lot. Remember, they won the SEC championship in 1988, tied with Auburn, the earthquake game. And in the next 11 years, they had seven losing seasons in the next 11 years. Throw in Curly Hallman, you can make that happen. Hey, great show today. All of our guests, Coach Ellis Johnson, Franz Beard, the Iron
Thanks,
Dude,
Ken and Franz. You
Association
guys
of
have a
America.
good day.
Yeah.
Bye,
everybody,
y'all.
and check out
Thanks,
Lisa.
Lisa.
Help us support breast cancer research.
We gotta. Rob, I just wanted to say before we jump, Lisa has advanced again.
Okay.
So our person Lisa that we're supporting, it's nothing. We're supporting her. That she's running for Fab 40 over 40. It's an international contest, which I found out today or yesterday.
Wow.
And she's advanced now 3 more rounds. So she's in like this next tier. So if you click on that QR code, it's free to vote. And you can vote once a day. So if you get into it or whatever, and they'll give you an email and say, hey, vote again today or whatever. And if you are rich and you want to donate, then donate in the name of SEC Sideline Sports or Rob Brown or something like that.
And do
but
so,
you can donate there. You can buy like 100 tickets or something or votes and then whatever. That's the whole concept. But everything goes to cancer to support breast cancer research. But Lisa is donating all of her money, if she were to win, which is like $40,000 in prizes and all sorts, to the victims of the hurricanes in Florida. All of her money is going towards that. So anyways, vote for Lisa is a vote for Florida. She's one of our peeps, and we're supporting and doing stuff like this more, Rob, in the future, because Rob has got one of the biggest hearts you've ever seen. He does stuff, and Audrey does a ton. These two people are some of the kindest, sweetest people you've ever met. They give everything. Rob would give you a shirt off his back. Very genuine human beings.
So will you.
And no, I will not give you the shirt off my back. You can get the hell out, because I got to feed a kid. All right, anyway, but that's kidding. Rob is he's a great person and a great community leader, and what you see on TV is what you get in life.
Well, I appreciate that. And listen, we got a great show store for tomorrow too, Brendan.
Yeah.
Ralph Russo, AP's national college football writer, has made the switch to The Athletic now. He's going to be batting leadoff tomorrow morning.
He has made
Will
the
Gunter,
switch.
Yancey Porter, Rodney Orr, and got a lot to talk about tomorrow. All 16 teams, man. Thanks for watching. Have a blessed day. See you tomorrow.
Tomorrow I'll get my highlights together. We'll have a little conversation about the game and stuff like that tomorrow.
Will do. All right. I loved all the stuff you sent me.
Hey,
Saturday
check out
night.
Buddy Martin tonight.
Yeah, 9 p.m. Eastern, Monday through Thursday on this same channel, folks. I watch that show every night. I turn it on. You're going to learn a lot. Love it.
Love it. That's like I learned this at A&M, the fish school.
Yeah.
I do this. And the Rebel and the calls and all the things. Hey, everyone's hitting that QR code. We love you guys. Talk to you tomorrow. See you. Bye.
In a perfect world, you'd set a health goal and results would happen overnight. In this world, the real world, it takes time, dedication, and the right support to achieve your best self. The Vitamin Shop's health enthusiasts are here to make sure you're not wasting a single moment on the wrong supplements. From the highest quality sports nutrition and superfoods to the most sought after trends, you'll find a huge variety of science-backed solutions for every goal. And the people to help guide you along the path to greatness.
Unbelievably, every 2 minutes in our communities, a child is either bought or sold for sex. I am Ari Dickey, board member for the Nashville Anti-Human Trafficking Coalition. Join me and millions of others in our fight against human trafficking and for its victims by helping to educate the most vulnerable among us, our middle and high school students. Go to nhtcoalition.org, become a partner, and help keep our families safe, because none of God's children are for sale.